Am I live? Yes, I am. Good morning and welcome back to our Insta Lives. I don't know if this camera is the right way. Our Insta Lives here at La Cura Retreats. I'm coming to you from our home in London, and but also our home in Llagostera, La Cura Retreats. And today we get to go all the way down to Joburg, South Africa. I'm really excited. As I said before, this conversation started last year. During the pandemic, and they started with the purpose of talking about wellness, about immunity, and then the subject sort of grew. I really enjoy talking to people, and I wanted to continue. I think the main purpose for me has been to inspire people. There's so many negative stories around, and it's just great to have the opportunity to listen to people who, with their passion and what they do, be it in the field of wellness or nature, or as we're going to see today, just helping people, just love, the field of love, basically. They inspire us. They inspire us to go on and just to do better, because when we know better, we do better. This person that I'm speaking to today is a person that I'm in awe of. I know her what she does. I've seen it up close. My family has as well. And it's a labor of love, definitely, and of passion for belief, a belief that what you do counts and it's worth it. Pippa Jarvis is a very special person, and I know that you're going to feel the same way as well. I've never had really the opportunity to sit down and talk to her about her. We talk about what she does, and today, for that reason, it's very special to me. If you have any questions at the end, we're going to talk about her. I'll just give the heads up to her Insta and to the website of TLC, and please ask questions, and please get passionate, and please and get to know people like Pippa that are doing amazing things in the world. So let me see if I can do this. I know she's waiting for me, so I think I do this. No, that's not it. Yes, I think so. And I'm sending. Can you believe it? After all these weeks, I'm still trying to figure this out. It tells you something. Okay. So Pippa, I send a request. Here you are. Are you in a car? I thought you told me that you were going to go up on a roof or something, and there you are in a car. Is that the only quiet place?
It's the only quiet place I could find with good signal.
Excellent. No children around. As I was saying, hello, how are you? I just introduced you, and I don't know if you heard me, but I just said that I see you when I've been there. You're always on the run, and we talk about what needs to be done and what we need to do for TLC. But I've never really had a personal conversation with you about you. So this is about you, because that reflects on everything you do, and I wanted to know who Pippa is. Let's start with there, like how you grew up, and people that are joining us today will then see the thread that leads to where you are today. So tell me about you, Miss Pippa. Tell me about your life.
Well, I grew up in South Africa during the apartheid times. So I was a privileged white person who I think was not as oblivious as my peers, because my family had quite a lot of connections into the opposition or into the anti-apartheid movement. I was quite unaware of it, of course, but the conversations at home were never around, racism, and I was not exposed to that. I was protected in lots of ways by a blanket of love, and I love the way you created a picture in my mind of this field of love. I love that picture, because that really is what my life has been about from the start. Just, the love of my family, the love of my community, the love of my country. And so watching our country progress through from apartheid into independence and into democracy was such a privilege, and so thrilling and exciting in so many ways. And our family, our family got involved the best way we knew how, which was to be a family, not just to myself and my 4 biological siblings. So we are 5 biological children altogether, but also by including now additional children who didn't have the benefit of a family and being a family to them. And it was there in 1993 and 1994 that the family started bringing in abandoned babies from the Johannesburg surrounds, and we wanted to be a family to them. And over time, we discovered we were actually quite good at that. We could bring babies in and love them and nurture them and nurse them to health if necessary, and then hopefully provide a bridge between ourselves and a permanent, loving, forever family for them.
Because I know a bit of the story as your mom, you know, your mom started this and you were part of this family and children started coming in. And how was it? Were you all from the beginning, like with this? You say, okay, this is great, we're going to do this? Or was it something more your mom did? Or how did it impact the whole family?
It was a passion we all shared. I think a lot of it was driven by the enthusiasm in the country for people to get involved and make the world a better place. You know, we were so enraptured by Nelson Mandela's philosophy of love and of care for the children and of the possibilities of our country. In fact, that was sort of our country motto for a long time, was alive with possibilities. And what is more alive with possibilities than a newborn baby? Yeah, you know, its whole future is ahead of it. And whatever you put in as a grounding and a foundation is not lost. No matter what journey that child takes later on in life, they will have had that solid foundation. And that was what we wanted to do. So now we're nearly 30 years down the line. We've had over 900 children through our home and our family work. And the ministries is going strong. The need is still great. Unfortunately, the country's poverty situation hasn't become less, and the pressure that mothers are under has made it that abandonment is still a huge problem in the country. So our work continues to be needed, and we constantly try to find ways that we can not only support our babies through their nurture and journey in their infancy, but how do we reach out to the mummies who are this desperate? How do we support them in the hopes that we can try and work to keeping families together?
And one thing that you sort of skipped over, so I know we're getting there, because I know we're going to what TLC is doing, and I think this is key to, and I think I want to make sure people understand that. But I want to just go back a little bit, and then there you started, children came, and I want for people to see the extent that you guys got, and you especially were so committed to this purpose. You not only created this home for these children, but you brought children, you adopted some children yourself. And I think this is very important for people to realize the extent of your passion. It's not just a job for you. It's not something that you're doing. It's who you are. So tell us a bit what prompted you to that first, because Pippa adopted, and she's going to say how many children she's adopted, because it's a story of love, and I think it's important that we tell it.
Thank you, Mabel. So yeah, the field of love is great. And, you know, if you imagine big gardens, like botanical gardens, you have a space where this kind of thing is grown and a space where that kind of thing is grown, and beautiful secret places. And so I love that imagery, because for me, my life is like that. I have this overwhelming, beautiful garden of work that I do where we bring these babies in, but I also have a secret place, a garden that is just my own, which is full of my lovely flowers. I have 14 flowers, 9 boys and 5 girls. I was 14
children, apart from the job that she does, that is a full-time, more than full-time job. Incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely keeping me busy right now during COVID. Wow, trying to work and be a full-time parent, teacher, come everything else is really stressful.
So how old are they now, Pippa? From what age to what age?
So my eldest now is 21 years old. His name is Matthew. I was 23 when I adopted him. So we've walked a long journey together, and it's been a great privilege to see the man he's become. And my youngest is Levi, and he is 6, turning 7 in December. So quite a big.
Now you're out of nappies. They all go to school, and oh my God, I cannot imagine. And you've moved to your new home. Have you moved already?
No. So my family will stay where it is on the current site with my children, but the children's home, the children who are between newborn and 5.5 years old, they are moving to a better site, somewhere smaller and able to be secured better, because crime is a big issue in South Africa, but also sustainably, economically, because it's a much smaller area. We don't have to maintain such a vast space, which is costing too much money. So that's going to be great. We're hoping to move in the next 6 to 8 weeks, holding thumbs.
Yes.
Very, very excited about that. But yeah, lots of work still to be done. So every day is a flurry of activity.
So what have been like the bigger challenges over the years for you in TLC? How is the situation? I think I want people to understand. So to explain a bit what TLC really is at the moment, and what it does for the community, and what are the challenges, and what are the things you need to keep doing what you do?
Sure. So the challenges are what I think in most developing countries is the challenge. So what we do is we take abandoned children, or children who are in need of care and are vulnerable in some way, into our home, our children's home, which caters for newborn to about 5 or 6 years old. We can take 35 children at a time, and we're always full. In fact, we're almost always over full. And that's simply a reflection of the need in the community, where we have young women aged usually between 12 and 20 years old having children, and they are unsupported, unable to be employed, and can't find a sustainable way to survive. So the babies come to us while the mummies try to get on their feet, or the babies are then placed into alternative care because the mummies can't. So that's the bulk of our work, and we do that with the support of our local community and a lot of fundraising and investment that we request, because our state can't support us to the full. We get 14% of what we need from our government, but the rest, in order to give the kids a proper, adequate life, we need to be able to get proper food, proper access to education, medication, therapies, all of that. So we do fundraise a lot. We rely on our community and our network to build our support base, and it's really the only reason we've survived COVID, really, because when everything shut down, our expenses went through the roof. We had to employ full-time staff because we couldn't have volunteers. Everything became more expensive. The logistics became more difficult because we've got children in and out of schools at different places and different times. So it's just become more expensive. And you can imagine it's not like the donor pool has grown. It's really shrunk. People have become more and more insulated and needing to take.
In the world, there's so many causes, as you've seen with COVID. Yes, it's just really tough out there.
Exactly. So we're so blessed. We've got this amazing program called Adopt a Cot, which encourages people to sponsor a very small amount financially every month. And in exchange, they get a beautiful email detailing how their baby is doing. And people love it. They really enjoy it, seeing the photographs, hearing the little anecdotes of the child that they sponsor. And it's a small amount of money. I think it's about $10, €10 a month. So people don't really feel it to their pockets. And for us, it makes a huge difference because it's a predictable amount we know is coming every month, so we can plan around it, and we can, sort of do a little bit of juggling to make sure all our things are covered, and we are able to prioritize knowing what's coming. So for us, that's the very best way to help, is to donate through the Adopt a Cot program. But of course, buying things online is also great. We use mountains of nappies and heaps of formula, so people can always, if they're worried about where the money ends up, they can definitely purchase items that they know are specifically for the babies, and it'll go there without any hesitation.
And you mentioned the community. So how is TLC then viewed within the community? Are you, because at one point I remember we were having this conversation about how is your local community, do they see TLC, and are they part of it? Are you managing to involve them in it?
We do our very best. I think abandonment is still quite a stigmatized scenario. People feel like a lot of judgment should be placed on the mothers, and as a consequence, the community are quite hostile to the birth mothers. So what we often find is that our abandoned children are brought to us from far away. If they trace the mother, they usually find that she traveled a great distance before she abandoned the baby.
Really? So it's not from your local, I always thought it was a local. No, so they come from other parts of South Africa, I guess. Only South Africa, I imagine, yeah.
Yes, well, in our province mostly. It's seldom that they'll cross provincial lines. So in the Gauteng province, which is where Johannesburg is based, people will travel maybe 4 or 5 districts distance to abandon their baby, because it means they can go home and make an excuse that people accept. In South Africa, it's very common for your children to be raised by your sister or your mother or some other relative. So they can make an excuse to their community to say, oh, I took the child to my mother, and nobody would be the wiser, because we live a very migrant kind of experience here. Our local community is not permanently based with us or in our area. They move around a lot. So it's an easy thing to hide if you've abandoned your child, if you've done it at a distance.
So has that
so we find that
has that changed over the years? Because I mean, we've been coming to you for many years. Do you see that there has been an improvement? Are there less kids abandoned, or is it still quite prevalent?
It's still very prevalent. I think the statistics show onwards of 3,000 a year, 3,000 babies a year abandoned. Those ones are the ones who survive. They estimate that there are twice that number who are abandoned and who die as a result of the abandonment. So a huge problem in the country. And if you can imagine, we only take 35 babies at a time, and their length of stay is on average 3 years. So it's not a whole lot of children that we are able to help, because the system and the problem is just, the problem is so great and the system is so broken. And between the two, things are really not working well. So we do our very best, to make sure that we provide, at least for those 3 years, a really nurturing, trauma-informed environment so that the children can thrive and hopefully one day reintegrate into their communities and their society in a way that is positive and brings value to the world.
Do some mothers, so when they come to you, do the mothers bring them to you? Are they left by your, how do they come to how do they find about TLC, and how do they end up with you?
So abandoned children are usually found by pedestrians, people walking by in an area that isn't often sort of got a lot of people. So if they find an abandoned child, the first instinct is almost always to take that child to a hospital to make sure it's okay. And that's where we then get connected. So the hospital social workers will connect with us to say they found a child, and do we have space? And then we match up where we have space. And then the babies will come to us. And then from that point, social workers are brought in, and they are assigned the children's cases. And they're responsible to go and do investigations on the child's social background, health investigations, make sure that the child, can, if possible, be reunified with family, and if not, then placed into a permanent loving family.
So what percentage would you say go back with their own birth mothers, and what percentage ends up being adopted from the ones that you have?
I'd say 4 out of 10 return to family of some form, either their birth mothers or a relative in their circle, and the other 6 would end up in foster care or adoption. Ideally for us, adoption, because it's a permanent commitment for the child. It's going to have stability. Foster care, we know, the world knows. Foster care, it has this temporary...
It's a very tricky thing, yes. And is that, so at the moment, is the adoption process, is that happening? Is that possible to do? Is it only within South Africa, or are people adopting from outside South Africa? What's happening?
So we are signatories, as South Africa, we are signatories to the Hague Convention, which allows international adoption. But politics and the policy of the government seems to be quite obstructive toward that they're not big supporters of international adoption. So it's very slow when it does happen. And locally, they would much prefer for children to be adopted, but the numbers of available families in South Africa to the numbers of children available don't match. There's far fewer families and so many children. So we're having quite a lot of stress and pressure put onto children's homes like ours and other residential centers. And we know that that's not good for kids. Residential care for children in groups is really just a bad idea. And that's me saying that, who runs a facility like this, because I know that we can't compete with a loving family where the family is focused on getting the best out of that baby. That's what we're after. So we are big advocates for awareness raising and, trying to gather as much information as we can from our communities about where families might be found, how we can support and locate families in the communities who would be willing to take these children on, and raise them to adulthood, ideally.
And how is your volunteer? Because when we've come to know TLC for many years, and my daughters have had the honor to have volunteered with you. How is the volunteer situation these days with COVID? I imagine people cannot get there. So how are you coping?
It's been tough. We've had to spend a lot more money than we have really on staff, on employing local staff temporarily. So sort of like casual emergency staff, but it's expensive. So we have tried to reopen our international volunteer program, which encourages young people from around the world to stay with us between 3 months and a year. The longer, the better for us and for our babies. And because we've been in this hiatus of understanding where we're moving, that's been another complication, because we don't don't have adequate accommodation at the moment, safe and well-maintained accommodation. So I've got 4 young ladies staying with me at the moment, me and my 13 children who are at home. It's a bit crazy, but they're really doing lovely and really well. They're such lovely girls. We've got a lady from Luxembourg, 2 from Germany, and 1 from the States. And so there are people who are traveling. It's tricky, and you have to do quite a bit of work around navigating visas and COVID tests and transport and travel. But it's working, and we're hoping that once we move, we can just open the doors for that. But people are a little bit reluctant. You know, South Africa doesn't have a large number of percentage of vaccinations. Well, not at all, really. That's mentionable, less than 1%. So I think that makes people a bit nervous. And of course, we're not sure where we're going in terms of politics and, you know, and the future. So it's a little bit, for those that are up to date with the country, I think people feel like, well, we'll come for a visit, but I'm not sure about staying for any length of time.
Well, I guess for those people listening that are vaccinated, and if they have, you know, kind of teenage children or, you know, older kids that, or people in general that want to do something good, I'm telling people, get in touch with you, because it's such a fantastic opportunity. I've lived it myself, and it's so sad to leave when you leave there, because you want to take all these children with you. So what are your just to recap here, what are your goals? What do you need now to keep what you do, TLC, going? How can people help apart from Adopt a Cot, volunteering, I guess? Tell me all this. Is there anything else that we could do from our end?
So we're about to move facilities, like I mentioned, from our old one to a new one. And it would be so nice to get some income going for some fresh, you know, just to bring some freshness in. We want to try and put up a nice new fresh book, for example, a little book library for that age appropriate books for under 5s. We have a lot of books that are just not appropriate for that age. So it'd be nice, and we'd love to do around the world kind of books that expose our children to the idea that there are so many more people to live and love in the world. And so that's something we're working on. And then there will be small projects. So my advice would be to follow us on social media. We have really a nice presence on social media. Lovely. If people follow us, they can see what our needs are at the time. You know, people can always get in touch if they have ideas, but otherwise they'll see what we're looking for when we post it on our websites. The consumables we always need, so baby items, baby clothing, anything baby related, we're always very happy to have. And then of course, just, you know, if you want to give something that's maybe a legacy gift or an idea in honor or memoriam of somebody you've loved, then we've got lots of suggestions about how.
That's a fantastic idea. And so what keeps you going, Miss Pippa? So we went to TLC, and now we're ending up with you again. And I think the point of these talks, as I said, we started, you know, talking because that's what La Cura is about. It's about wellness, but it's, at the end of the day, it's connection with ourselves and what's happening in the world, because we are not just our little one self. We are part of this. We are part of you, and you're part of us. And people like you, and this is what I think these talks are about, is that what's possible and what people can do. And I want to understand what drives you. How do you do this? How do you do 14 kids and help all these children? And I think we didn't touch on all the children that come with their own particular, you know, their problems, their traumas. And how do you keep going? Can you tell us what's your secret? That's a good one, no?
So, you know, love is not only something that you give. Like, love is such a funny kind of an energy, because the more you give it, the better you feel. It's really like that. So it's easy for me to love because it's just feels so good, and it gives me all the things I need, the things that fill my soul, that make my heart sing, that fill me up every day, are all based in the fact that I can love without a hassle. Like, I just adore people. I adore the work that I do. I adore my country. I adore my children. And that fills.
Okay, I'm going to start crying. That's, yeah. It's amazing.
I love everything.
Well, I love you, Pippa. I think this is great, and I hope all of the people that listen, I think they got to see what love can do. And I think if you have any more questions, please message Pippa, message me. I am a witness of this love, and I know that you're doing an amazing job. And we're here for you, as you know, all the way but from London and from La Cura. We want to continue being part of your journey, and I hope the people that listen to us today got to feel that. I thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy woman, and you have all these people to take care of. And I send you my strength and my love. And thank you, everybody that joined us this morning. And thank you, Pippa. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Now you can get out of the car. And I hope to see you soon in South Africa. I promise. I'm trying to make my way down there. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Have a good weekend.